webcast of the 2020 Annual Stockholders Meeting of Filinvest Development Corporation. This is your Chairman, Jonathan T. Gotianun. The Annual Stockholders Meeting will now come to order. For the first time in our history, because of the current health crisis, we are holding this meeting in a virtual format. Let me welcome our fellow stockholders who have joined us in the live webcast of these proceedings, and thank our shareholders who have participated in this meeting through our voting in absentia system or the appointment of proxy. We would also like to welcome our guests, the bank representatives, and our friends from the media. Joining me in this meeting are the following presenters. Ms. Lourdes Josephine G. Yap, our President and CEO, and Ms. Sharon Pagaling Refuerzo, our Corporate Secretary. Our Chairman Emerita, Mrs. Mercedes T. Gotianun. The other members of our board, Andrew T. Gotianun Jr., Mr. Michael Edward T. Gotianun, Ms. Claire A. Huang, Ms. Virginia T. Obsena, and Attorney Val Antonio B. Suarez, and the company's senior management officers, representatives of SGV and Company, our external auditors, and representative of the Stock Transfer Service, Inc., our stock transfer agent, are joining the meeting through live webcast. Ms. Secretary, were the stockholders of the company duly notified of this meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In accordance with the SEC notice dated April 20, 2020, the notice of this meeting, together with a copy of the information statement and the audited and interim financial statements, was posted on the company's website and disclosed through PSE Edge. The notice of meeting was also published in the business sections of Business Mirror, Business World, and the Philippine Daily Inquirer, both in print and online, on May 28, and in the business sections of the Philippine Star and Business Mirror on May 29. Affidavits attesting to the fact of publication are on record.
Ms. Secretary, please attach said proof of service to the records of this meeting.
Yes, I shall do so, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a quorum for this meeting, Ms. Secretary?
Mr. Chairman, as of record date of this meeting, or June 1, 2020, there is 8,648,462,987 common shares. There are present in this meeting stockholders owning at least 7,658,489,801 shares, representing 88.55% of the total outstanding shares. We will reflect in the minutes of the breakdown of the stockholders present in terms of their mode of attendance and the percentage of the outstanding shares that they own. I therefore certify, Mr. Chairman, that there is a valid quorum for the transaction of any business, as well as the approval of the items contained in the notice and agenda for today's meeting.
Though we are holding this meeting in a virtual format because of the current health crisis, we endeavored to provide our stockholders opportunity to participate in this meeting to the same extent possible as an in-person meeting. Our Corporate Secretary will now share the rules of conduct and voting procedures for this meeting.
Mr. Chairman, the rules of conduct and the voting procedures are set forth in the definitive information statement and in the explanation of agenda items, which forms part of the notice of the annual stockholders meeting. I would like to highlight the following points to our stockholders who are joining us on our live webcast. Stockholders who successfully registered under the shareholder registration system were provided instructions to access our digital voting ballot, as well as the virtual meeting. The deadline for voting in absentia and through proxy was on June 15, 2020. After the voting, the Office of the Corporate Secretary, together with our stock transfer agent, tabulated all the votes cast in absentia as well as via proxy. The results of the voting will be reported after each item is taken up during this meeting. The stockholders were also given up to June 15, 2020 to submit any questions or comments they may have. We also would like to inform all participants in this meeting that there will be a visual and audio recording of the entire proceedings. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The next order of business is the approval by the stockholders of the minutes of the annual stockholders meeting held on April 26, 2019. Ms. Secretary, were copies of the minutes of the last annual stockholders meeting distributed or made available to all stockholders?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. An electronic copy of the minutes of last year's annual stockholders meeting was made available on the company's website as well as attached to the information statement. Shareholders owning 7,655,116,233 shares, or about 99.96% of the total voting shares represented in this meeting, have voted in favor of the approval of the minutes of the annual meeting on April 26, 2019. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, the resolution being shown on the screen has been approved.
Thank you, Ms. Secretary. The next order of business is the presentation of the President's report based on the audited financial statements for the year ended 2019. Your management has prepared an audiovisual presentation on the financial and operational highlights of your company for the year 2019 and the outlook for 2020. For a better appreciation by the stockholders of the report, we will now show the pre-recorded report of FDC's President and CEO, Ms. Lourdes Josephine Gotianun-led.
Welcome to FDC's 2020 Annual Stockholders Meeting. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, I am pleased to present today positive financial results for your company for the first quarter of 2020, as well as a record-breaking 2019 performance. Last year, we revisited our vision statement to better express what has guided us in the past and going forward, to empower the Filipino to attain his dreams. FDC grew focused on the underserved markets. This is the philosophy that guided us in entering markets early, whether it be housing, BPO offices, consumer loans, the Clark Corridor, or the Mindanao power market. FDC's solid performance in 2019 caps a decade of consistent, robust delivery built on this vision. Riding on both our strategic direction as well as its effective implementation against the backdrop of a strong economy, FilInvest registered a 10-year double-digit compounded annual growth rate of 19% in terms of consolidated revenues, and 21% in terms of net income attributable to parent equity holders. 2019 was a banner year for FDC. We exceeded goals for our core business, gained further traction in the new businesses, and achieved record financial results. The company hit a new milestone as it broke the double-digit billion mark in net income. Net income attributable to parent equity holders reached $12 billion in 2019, growing by 23% from the $9.8 billion in the previous year, while consolidated net income registered an 18% growth to hit $15.9 billion. The strong performance was underpinned by solid macroeconomic fundamentals. The Philippines' GDP grew by 5.9%, buoyed by solid domestic consumption that was driven by stable inflation, higher OFW remittances, and record low unemployment in 2019. FDC's property business, composed of real estate and hospitality segments, provided a solid source of growth, contributing almost half of FDC's bottom line in 2019. Meanwhile, FDC's consumer-focused banking subsidiary, East West Banking Corporation, delivered a net income contribution to the group of 6.1 billion or 34%. Power subsidiary FDC Utilities contributed 2.5 billion in net income, equivalent to 14%, while the balance came from sugar operations. The sale of residential and commercial lots, condominiums, and residential units by Filinvest Land and Filinvest Alabang rose by 5% to 21.5 billion in 2019. Rental revenues, on the other hand, amounted to 7.45 billion, growing by 21% compared to the previous year. This was on the back of the completion of office buildings that brought FLI's total to 524,000 square meters of office GLA, as well as the full year effect of rentals for buildings completed in 2018. At the end of 2019, the group's total business and land lease portfolio stood at almost 1.1 million square meters of gross leasable area. Hotel operations achieved a revenue growth of 24% to 3.3 billion, boosted by the opening of Crimson Resort and Spa Boracay in November 2018 and the Quest Tagaytay in April 2019. Filinvest Hospitality currently has a portfolio of 6 managed properties with approximately 1,800 rooms under the Crimson and Quest brands, and 2 championship golf courses. East West Bank reported a net income of 6.2 billion, 38% higher than previous year. The income was driven by the 10% growth of its loan portfolio and the lower cost of deposit from its network of 467 branches. Net revenues rose 13% to 28.7 billion, while operating expenses, excluding provisions for losses, increased at a slower rate of 8%. The bank's discipline around cost control allowed it to trim its cost-to-income ratio to 57% from the previous year's 60%. All told, East West Bank recorded its most profitable year in 2019 and maintained its top-tier position in profitability with a return on equity of 14%. Power subsidiary FDC Utilities revenue rose by 17% to 10.1 billion in 2019 as a result of higher sales volume brought about by increased demand from its customers and the sale of replacement power to other power generators. FDC Utilities operates an aggregate 405 megawatt plant that uses the latest circulating fluidized bed or clean coal technology. The plant operates efficiently, posting a high availability factor of 91% in 2019. It has a dispersed customer base of 15 distribution utilities. Of the 405 megawatt capacity, 302 megawatts is contracted under mostly long-term power purchase agreements. In 2019, sugar operations contributed 299 million to FDC's net income, growing by 88% year-on-year. Pacific Sugar owns a vertically integrated sugar business which includes sugar mills and refineries and an in-house corporate sugar cane farming operations. Your company's strong performance reflected in the share price of FDC, closing at 13 pesos per share at the end of 2019, or a share price growth of 10%. Last year, FDC paid out dividends of 865 million, or a payout rate of 9%. Its total shareholder return of 11% outperformed the Philippine Stock Exchange Index that rose by 4.7% in 2019. We have deliberately built a diversified portfolio of businesses and a healthy balance sheet that can absorb external shocks. FTC ended 2019 with total assets of 643.9 billion and consolidated equity of 132.1 billion, up 9% and 10% respectively. We ended 2019 with a debt-to-equity ratio of 0.99 to 1 and a net debt-to-equity ratio of 0.59 to 1. Our long-term debt has an average maturity of 6.3 years, where 98% of our debt have fixed rates. Of the total debt, 89% is in local currency, while the balance in foreign currency is fully hedged and has been retired in 2020. It is against this backdrop that the 2020 pandemic crisis came upon us. The outlook for the business environment has changed dramatically as a result of this unfortunate event. The government declared an enhanced community quarantine in mid-March to give the Philippines time to build up its healthcare arsenal. Beyond financial and scenario planning, FDC and its subsidiaries answered the pandemic with clear protocols to safeguard the health and safety of the Filinvest family. This was coupled with a quick response to address our customers' emerging needs and provide financial relief such as rental waivers, deferment, or long-term extensions during the ECQ period. In the first quarter of 2020, FDC still reported net income attributable to parent equity holders of 3 billion, a very respectable 8% year-on-year growth. Consolidated net income was recorded at 4 billion, rising by 5%. The company managed to post net income growth due to the strong performance of East West Bank as well as control measures implemented across the group. East West Bank delivered a net income contribution to the group of 2.3 billion in the first quarter of 2020, 75% higher than the same period last year, despite doubling its preemptive provision for NPLs. This growth was driven by better margins from both its core lending business and higher trading gains. Despite the heavy provisioning, East West performed strongly with an 18% return on equity, the highest in the industry. The imposition of the ECQ had immediate effects on FDC's real estate business, composed of Filinvest Land and Filinvest Alabang. Trading revenues declined by 40% to 3.4 billion in the first quarter of 2020, while net income contribution to the group fell by 26% to 1.5 billion. Revenue recognition was affected due to the delays in the completion of the projects brought about by the construction halt in mid-March and the grace period for the payment of its home buyers granted during the ECQ period. Meanwhile, rental revenues grew by 4% to 1.9 billion in the first quarter of 2020. The growth in office leasing was offset by the decline in retail mall revenues. FLI's office buildings remained operational during the ECQ period while enjoying a high average occupancy of 91%. Meanwhile, most parts of the malls were closed for the duration of the ECQ, and Filinvest waived rental payments for establishments that were not operational. Power subsidiary FDC Utilities reported a slight decline in revenues by 5% to 2.2 billion as demand contracted due to the imposition of the ECQ. This brought net income to 511 million. Its plant located in Misamis Oriental remained fully operational during ECQ to service its customers. The imposition of travel restrictions as early as January impacted the hospitality business. Hotel operations posted a revenue decline of 21% to 689 million in the first quarter of 2020. This brought net income contribution to 15.6 million. 5 out of the 6 hotels and resorts remained in operations during the ECQ, but on a very limited basis. Crimson Boracay, however, temporarily ceased operations when the entire island of Boracay was on lockdown. Quest Tagaytay was used as a quarantine facility for OFWs, while Crimson Alabang and Quest Clark were used by BPO employees. In light of these developments, we have revisited our 2020 plans. Amidst the evolving nature of this outbreak, we are taking a cautious approach and adopting a more flexible, short-term planning process while still being mindful of our medium-term strategy. Our strategy is to optimize our existing asset base while leveraging on digital and technology to answer to the changing needs of our markets. East West Bank recently announced its entry in the digital race with Como, the first exclusively digital banking service to be offered by a local universal bank. With Como, customers can only perform transactions through a secured mobile app. Since everything is done digitally with no need for branches, Como returns the savings from lower overhead costs to customers with a time deposit-like interest rate on their savings account. Our property business will continue its stronger initiative on building its recurring income portfolio in the office and logistic park segments. As part of this directive, in October 2019, Filinvest Alabang signed a joint venture agreement with Mitsubishi Corporation for the development of a 15 billion multi-tower mixed-use complex within Filinvest City. Income from this transaction will be recognized in the second quarter of 2020. Mitsubishi will have a 40% stake in the development of a 1.7 hectare prime lot that is seen to bolster mixed-use GLA by approximately 183,000 square meters of recurring income portfolio. FAI has also started on its smart city initiatives by building its digital infrastructure that deploys an intelligent network of connected devices to receive, analyze, and manage data to improve the quality of life of its locator and visitors. This would also include deployment of alternative and sustainable mobility solutions within the city. Filinvest will invest heavily on the development of our 2 major townships in the highly progressive Clark Corridor. The first is the 201-hectare Filinvest Mimosa Plus Leisure City, and the second is the 288-hectare Filinvest at New Clark City. At New Clark City, the 64-hectare Phase 1 of Filinvest Innovation Park is due for completion by the second half of 2020. Aside from the leasing of big lot parcels for factories, FLI is also looking at constructing high specification logistic structures for lease. Another logistic park is set for launch in Calamba, Laguna, beside the fully sold Filinvest Technology Park. We find this timely as we anticipate the demand for ready-built warehouses to address the growing logistics and an e-commerce industry. FLI has sufficient project lineup to hit 2.1 million square meters in the next 5 years, focused on the office and logistic market. We find this timely as we anticipate the demand for ready-built factories to address the growing logistics and e-commerce industry. FLI has sufficient project lineup to hit the 2.1 million square meters of GLA in the next 5 years, focused on the office and logistic market. With sufficient land inventory in 3 major hubs, Alabang, Clark, and Cebu, FLI is ready to meet any office and logistic demand in the medium term. FDC has pursued new endeavors that provide recurring income from eco and environmentally friendly investments. In September 2019, we signed a joint venture agreement with Hitachi Aquatech Engineering Limited to establish Flow to build, operate, and transfer services in desalination, recycled water, and sewage treatment facilities. We have also expanded our strategic partnership with NG Services Philippines to include solar rooftop systems through FREE. FREE has been awarded contracts for a total of 5.4 megawatts of solar rooftop systems. This is at the heel of its successful utilities infrastructure joint venture in district cooling. After building the Philippines' largest district cooling system with a capacity of up to 12,000 tons of refrigerant, servicing FLI's Northgate Cyber Zone in Filinvest City, it is now replicating this in the Clark Mimosa Plus and Activa Cubao. The group believes that the partnership's initial projects with respect to renewable energy and district cooling will position it to take advantage of the global move towards greater sustainability. Meanwhile, FDC's airport infrastructure projects saw progress as the O&M of Clark International Airport was officially handed over to the consortium LIPAD in August last year. The new terminal is currently being fitted out with an estimated annual capacity of 8 million passengers. Before the COVID-19 outbreak, the airport was already hitting the 4 million mark. Filinvest, as part of the 6-member NAIA consortium, continues to pursue its O&M and upgrade proposal for the country's principal gateway. In the Filipino tradition of bayanihan, or community spirit, the Filinvest Group is fully committed to fighting this pandemic hand in hand with the national and local government. Together with the Filinvest City Foundation and the Andrew Gotianun Foundation, we identified high-impact areas for our donations. We set aside 100 million for this. First is to protect and aid our frontline healthcare workers through complete PPEs and temporary living facilities for our ITM frontliners. Second is to support the test and treat programs of the Interagency Task Force. This included the distribution of ventilators, PCR-based testing machines, and rapid sampling tests for San Mateo and Muntinlupa. Filinvest Alabang Inc. also opened its doors for the use of the Filinvest tent in Alabang as a temporary quarantine center. Third is to provide data support for key decision makers through the fast-track development of a COVID-19 digital dashboard to track cases, testing, facilities, and supplies resources. And lastly, we distributed food packages for the vulnerable in communities we serve, together with our local government unit partners. In closing, I would like to thank our shareholders, partners, and customers for their continued trust and support in us. I would also like to thank my fellow board of directors, management, and the entire Filinvest family for their malasakit during difficult times. Together, we can surmount the challenges of these uncertain times and navigate the path back to our development plans. Thank you and good morning. We are pleased to inform you that your board has approved the declaration of a cash dividend of 13.84 centavos per share. This represents a payout of 10% of last year's income attributable to parent equity holders. The record date of said cash dividend is fixed on July 22, 2020, with payment date on August 17, 2020. This constitutes a total cash declaration amounting to 1.197 billion.
Thank you, Ms. President. We will now proceed with the next agenda, which is the ratification by the stockholders of the 2019 audited financial statements. Ms. Secretary, will the stockholders furnish a copy of the 2019 audited financial statements?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. An electronic copy of the 2019 audited financial statements was made available on the company's website as well as attached to the information statement. Stockholders owning 7,654,600,500 shares, or 99.95% of the total voting shares represented in this meeting, have voted in favor of ratification of the 2019 audited financial statements. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, the resolution being shown on the screen has been approved.
The next item in the agenda is the ratification by the stockholders of all the acts, resolutions, and proceedings of the Board of Directors, board committees, and management of the company up to June 22, 2020. Ms. Secretary will explain the matter and report on the voting results thereof.
Mr. Chairman, a summary of the more important acts, resolutions, and proceedings of the Board of Directors, the board committees, and management to be ratified was presented in the information statement made available to the stockholders. These acts and resolutions are duly recorded in the corporate books and include the approval of contracts and agreements, application for government permits and licenses, bank transactions, and other transactions in the general conduct of business. Mr. Chairman, stockholders owning 7,654,600,500 shares, or 99.95% of the total voting shares represented in this meeting, have voted to ratify all the acts, resolutions, and proceedings of the Board of Directors, board committees, and management from the date of the last annual stockholders meeting up to June 22, 2020. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, the resolution shown on the screen has been approved.
The next order of business is the election of the 7 members of the Board of Directors for the ensuing year. Ms. Secretary, were there nominations for the board for the year 2020 to 2021?
Mr. Chairman, the Nominations Committee earlier submitted the final list of all candidates who were nominated and pre-screened in accordance with the company's revised manual on corporate governance. They are Mr. Jonathan T. Gotianun, Ms. Lourdes Josephine Gotianun-Yap, Mr. Nelson M. Bona, Mr. Michael Edward T. Gotianun, Ms. Claire A. Wang, Ms. Virginia T. Obsena, and Attorney Val Antonio B. Suarez. The Nominations Committee has also identified Ms. Claire Wang, Ms. Virginia Obsena, and Attorney Val Antonio Suarez as nominees for the position of independent directors. All the nominees have given their consent to their respective nominations. Other than those named, no other nomination for election as director was submitted to the Nominations Committee during the nomination period.
Ms. Secretary, may we have the result of the election?
Mr. Chairman, each of the 7 nominees for directors has garnered at least 99.94% votes. Given this, I can certify, Mr. Chairman, that each of the nominees has received enough votes for election to the board, and that the resolution for the election of the 7 nominees to the board of directors as presented on the screen has been approved.
Let us now proceed to the next item in the agenda, which is the appointment of the company's external auditors. Management, upon the recommendation of the company's Audit and Risk Management Oversight Committee, endorsed the reappointment of the auditing firm of CISIP Gores, Velayo and Company as external auditor for the company for the year 2020.
I am pleased to report, Mr. Chairman, that stockholders owning 7,655,116,233 shares, or 99.96% of the total voting shares represented in this meeting, have voted in favor of the reappointment of the auditing firm of CISIP Gores, Velayo and Company as external auditors for the year 2020. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, the resolution being shown on the screen has been approved.
Ms. Secretary, are there other matters that require consideration by the stockholders?
There is none, Mr. Chairman.
We will now address questions and comments from the stockholders. Ms. Secretary, please read aloud the question and comments we have received from our stockholders.
Mr. Chairman, we received one question from a stockholder, and the question is, does FDC have plans of raising capital this year, whether through debt or equity?
May we ask our president to respond to the question?
In mid-March, just before the imposition of the ECQ, FDC was in the midst of floating an 8 billion peso denominated bond. But due to the elevated economic uncertainty at that particular point in time, we decided, together with our underwriters and book runners, to defer the bond offering to a later date. In April, FDC paid off its $300 million 2013 bond. We are now considering reviving our bond offering now that the ECQ has been lifted. We are evaluating both peso and US dollar denominated bonds given the attractive rates. The business segment of the group have been on expansion and diversification modes, and it shall continue to do so in the future. We are also on the lookout for possible acquisitions. To maintain this posture, it is imperative to strike a careful balance of equity and debt. Your company, FDC, is especially keen to raise equity, not only to support the expansion of its subsidiaries, but also to unlock its untapped value and share to the public. Currently, public ownership in FDC is at 10.8%. We believe that providing liquidity and marketability in FDC share will no doubt redound to the benefit of all its shareholders. We're awaiting the right timing for such an offering.
Before we adjourn, we would like to show you a short video presentation on the efforts and activities undertaken by the group to support the affected communities during the Taal ashfall and the COVID-19 pandemic.
PhilInvest nandito. Tapos na, pero hanggang ngayon, tuloy-tuloy pa rin po sila. So maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Thank you for that video. There being no other matter for discussion, the meeting is hereby adjourned. On behalf of the members of the Board of Directors, the management of the company, we thank you for attending today's meeting and for your continued trust and confidence in the company and your management. Thank you very much and good day to everyone.